making stuff and jacked up.
Thomas.
Making stuff and jacked up. Making stuff and jacked up.
Let it go. DJ, get out of the way. Get it, DJ.
Killing these people, trust me.
You're listening to Meadows and Makers podcast.
With Jack Dub and making stuff. Peace.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week of the Meadows and Makers podcast here on MSP Waves. This is the home for self-sufficiency, self-sustainability, getting some people on that are just, out there doing different projects and working on different things to, hopefully inspire you to get out there and make the world the place that you want to see. So, all right, I see that I am having a few issues on the technical side, as is usually the case, because I haven't upgraded my rig yet, and I've not gotten any of that done, so I apologize. Let me get some of this stuff taken care of, and we'll see if we're kicking in high gear here. Full tilt like a Peterbilt. Let's see. All right, got that going on. Let's see. We got some great people in the audience so far. We got Amenza, we got Breeze, we got Crimson Clad, Inertia, Peachy Mod, Rondon. Hey, thank you guys for being here this morning. Crimson just got back from walking her dog, and Inertia is feeling cromulent. I don't know what that means. That's a new $5 word for me, so I appreciate that. All right, so just some housekeeping up front. You got to get this out of the way, that the views and opinions that are expressed on this show are those of my own and those of my guests, and they do not reflect on MSP Waves. This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you have any comments or suggestions, or you want to shout at somebody, you can do that to me. Leave the people at MSP Waves out of it. So there is the disclaimer there for you up front. And so after that, let me go ahead and do the show mantra I like to do, is that I like to put this out there just as a, I think words have real power in the world. So something that I like to say is, as the introduction here, is that I will be an inextinguishable light of possibilities for myself and others. And so that's just something I try to hold in my heart, and I just want to put out there to the world. So There you go. So, saying all that, today I have on a guest that I've been wanting to talk to for a little while. It was back when Jack Dub and myself were doing the show that we spotted and curated one of his posts. It was about solar power and doing some neat things with solar and getting some controls going on. And so my guest for today is this fellow steemian that you may have seen around here. I know he's involved in Helpy and some projects. So it is Solo Miner, and so we're going to get to know Solo Miner a little better today, get to talk to him about some of his projects, and see what he's all about. So without further ado, Solo Miner, how are you?
I'm doing good, making stuff. Thank you so much for having me on MSP today.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate you taking the time out to come on the show with me and have a little chat. I've been wanting to talk to you for a little while, and it's seems like you're a fellow tinkerer and like to get your hands involved in a lot of different projects, and you're a pretty busy guy, it looks like.
I sure am. I just tend to take a break to eat and get 8 hours of sleep, and I just try to get back to whatever I was working on last.
Cool. So for the people that may not be familiar with you, maybe if you'd like to go into a little bit of your background, like kind of how you got involved with Steemit and cryptocurrency, and just let us know a little bit about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So my discovery into cryptocurrency started in 2012, 2013, where I just saw it on some tech articles. And I was like, what is this? This is interesting. It's a peer-to-peer money system. And not a lot of people are using it. There was only one community at the time, which was Bitcoin Talk. And I joined that community. And very quickly, I learned about altcoins. And from there, I got involved with Dartcoin. That's actually Dash now. Dartcoin is just its previous name. I was involved in a few of the release candidates, testing them out, reporting how it went on the forums, and Evan Duffield would get on there and respond. And from there, I just was day trading altcoins on Poloniex, and I saw Steem, and I bought some Steem and made some good profits on it, buying and selling it just for the BTC margin with the altcoin itself. And I didn't actually get on the platform, I would say, until May of 2017. I started with my Freedom Coin account, which is my username that I have on Bitcoin Talk. And it went really well. I made about 1,000 posts overall, and I just didn't like the name. I felt like I was advertising an altcoin, or I was like a developer for Freedom Coin, which I wasn't. There was actually already an altcoin called Freedom Coin. Nice enough, the dev reached out to me on Bitcoin Talk. He's like, do you mind if I create this coin? It basically has your name in it. I said, yeah, sure. And I went on the ANN, the announcement, and it said, I'm not affiliated with this coin. I think it's died since then, so I'm glad I didn't get involved with it. But I basically moved on to Steemit with more of an investment, and I kept it in my savings for a long time. I didn't even power it up for probably 6 months to a year. And then I finally powered up, and I'm like, wow, I have a pretty good upvote. At the time, I had probably 5,000 Steem, just holding it just for a year, and was going to turn it over if I wanted to for a profit. But I just kept it powered up, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of fun, just posting around, upvoting people and encouraging other people on the platform. And from there, I moved on to my Solo Miner account. As I said, I just didn't like the username. And be honest, I actually lost my master password.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I had my active key, so I could move funds around. I had my posting key, but my master password, I'll get a little closer to the microphone if that's better. But my master password was lost in an encrypted container of some other altcoins that I've officially written off as a loss. So I said, I don't want to deal with a hard fork later on where I have to have my master password to like prove my identity or some crazy thing. So I'm just going to start a new account. I'm going to power down, move it over. And I like the name Solo Miner. the name solo miner, if anyone's been in the mining community for a long time with Bitcoin and other altcoins, a solo miner is a entity that has so much hashing power they don't really have to be a part of a pool to find blocks. And there was all these amazing stories out there of these solo miners early on mining for days and not finding anything. All of a sudden they come up on the 50 BTC block reward. I mean, at the time, that's only worth like a few dollars. But think about if you just came up on 50 BTC today. That's crazy. And it's I just wanted to leave that in the name and kind of carry on its legacy. As solo mining doesn't occur for any major coins anymore. You can obviously still solo mine altcoins that are way up there if the hash rate really low. But I just like the name. So I have about 6,000 posts now with my solo miner account. I've been doing that every day, twice a day. I usually write my posts ahead of time in many cases, and I just save them and I post them when I'm ready. And I've just been getting more involved with the community. I joined Helpy, was brought on actually. Carrie Allen was nice enough to talk to Minnow and introduce myself to him, and we were brought on. And now I'm actually a Helpy cake baker as well, so I curate for Helpy.
Yeah.
And so I get to look for posts and give them some Helpy love. And I found all of that through MSP. I just started on the general chat saying hi to everyone, and over time, Helpy reached out to me. So I joined that and joined the alliance with Ingenuity, and just making a lot of friends. This is the biggest altcoin community I've ever seen. Besides Bitcoin itself, which has Bitcoin Talk, and until we have like 5 or 10 million users, we're not touching them. But we're doing really, really good for an altcoin. I am impressed.
Oh wow, very cool, man. So you've been really involved since the beginning of cryptocurrencies, it seems.
Just about 2013. So I started GPU mining a little bit after that, and I GPU mined up until probably 2016 when the hash rate was getting too hard, and I just backed off to just holding coins and trading them on Poloniex and other exchanges, and making long-term investments with Darkcoin and selling later on, and just trying to do the same with Steem. Just buy in early, and when the price gets to all-time highs, I'll either consider selling it, or I'll hold on to it and maybe build a whole nother business out of it with my voting power.
Yeah, very cool. So yeah, that's we talked a little bit before the show. So you said that your background is a little bit in the IT stuff. So you've played around with a lot of this, some of the different projects, and I saw that you were involved with the library project as well, and you were hosting your images for Steemit through library.
Correct. Yep, it provides me URLs so I can then post them with Markdown, and at the same time, they're also being backed up to the library blockchain. So you could go into the LibraryNet app and you could view all of my posts there as well.
Oh, that's very interesting. So that keeps it a little even further decentralized. I'm thinking.
Exactly. It's not just like a file server that I'm hosting. As at first I thought that. I said, well, this literally seems like a glorified file server. But then I looked at the logs, and it was literally creating transactions for everything I upload. And It has TX IDs and all the good stuff you'd want for a cryptocurrency.
Oh, interesting. So that one uses something called proof of storage or something, huh?
I'm not sure actually on the protocol. I need to read the white paper.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Does it? Is that what it uses?
Possibly. I was looking into it for a little bit because you could earn library. You could earn the token by printing out Thingiverse files and that they posted up, and it was interesting in that regard for me.
Oh, your 3D printer.
Yeah. So they had a thing on there for doing that, so I thought it was pretty interesting. But it's also very interesting in doing the file hosting, and so I'm wondering, do they also do videos on that one too?
On library?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe you can upload videos, though I've had a pretty good solution of IPFS, so I haven't tinkered with it too much. But my understanding is yes, you can.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the big things was like, That was kind of a question that I was thinking of was, is there any advantage of trying to use that library chain to also host videos rather than just IPFS? I don't know.
That's
Um,
a good question. I should give it a try and see what my results are. The most important thing for me is for whatever I'm using as a host to provide me an external link to provide people.
yeah,
So just like with my gateway, I can literally send someone my URL with the hash of the IPSS file, and they can see it as a video. It's hard to do that with Siacoin and storage and a few others. You have to run it through their own internal dApp, so you kind of have like a walled garden effect in that case, and it makes it hard to share it with other people.
okay, yeah, uh, yeah. It's there's all kinds of different ins and outs of the space, and we were talking a little bit before the show. A lot of this stuff is a lot over my head, and I'm a copy paste coder guy, and I can kind of get it a little bit, but for the most part, I gotta find something else somebody has done and just try to copy paste and cross, like we were saying, cross our fingers and hope it works.
Yeah, well, that's mostly what I do, and then I just kind of keep reading it line after line, and sometimes I get it, sometimes it just goes right over my head.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But I just like you were saying, it is really exciting, and the community here in Steemit is one of the most vibrant. Like you were saying, of all the altcoins, and it's interesting times ahead. I think what's your overall perspective on where things are going right now?
Well, when I first joined Steam, I wasn't really worried about the whole censorship issue and deplatforming. In
Yeah,
early 2017, that really wasn't much of an issue. I mean, you'd hear like occasionally that happening to one or two people, but it's not on the mass scale you see now. And that's really what's made me even more interested in just staying on the blockchain is all these platforms you can join and you can build a following, and it could just be taken away from you overnight due to policy change. And I guess a whale could do that to me too on Steam, but I just don't see that as likely as a broad policy change wiping someone off of the platform. I think you had someone else on your podcast that built antennas and radio stuff, and they marked them as restricted, I believe, and there was no reason to. And I think it was on your Makers to Meadows podcast you're talking about that.
oh, it could be. Um,
Tip Fox, maybe someone else.
yeah, yeah, and maybe. Yeah, maybe one of my other guests, but oh yeah, it was SL Gamer guy.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
on YouTube. He just had a YouTube channel, and he got an age restriction
yeah.
mark against him on YouTube just for out of no reason whatsoever.
Right.
Really.
And that's my problem as a content creator. Like right now, I'm working full time on creating content. I'd hate to put a year into it just for them to make some kind of broad policy change and deperson me on the platform. I'd rather be on the platform like Steam or on many like Wiku and Whale Shares and Plubush Zero X and maybe EOS Voice. We'll see how all that goes. But I'm kind of spreading myself out. So why be? It's like you could be fired from your job at any point working for YouTube. Is the idea, and I don't want
Yeah.
to put years into that and then get that taken away.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So you're full time making content now, huh?
Yeah, well, keeping my servers up and running. I tend to pour hours into my console, and that takes up 8 hours in a day. So I guess that's full time too.
Yeah. Wow. So you're pretty relatively self sufficient, I'm guessing. Like kind of I see you do a lot of homesteading stuff, and you grow a lot. You grow a lot of your own food. Kind of have your own food forest going, I'm guessing.
I don't have enough property to grow my enough food. We're only on 1 acre where we
Oh,
are,
okay.
and just the amount of light we get on the property isn't good. I do want to buy a larger piece of property. My grand view eventually is to make enough in crypto to buy myself a piece of property and then make even better projects and videos on. But the property I'm on is not big enough, so I have just a couple things like potatoes and carrots and I also have blueberries and raspberries and muscadine, but we still go to the farmers market every weekend and buy from the local farmers, and usually get enough food to get us through the week. But eventually, I would like to grow all of my own food that I could in the region, and then import whatever else I want to eat.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. So yeah, it's I have a um, similar dream is to be able to try to grow all my own food. I had Breezin on a little while ago. She's a farmer in South Africa, and they've reached the point where they totally sustain themselves off of all the food that they grow on their land, and that's a place where I want to get in the future. And it definitely helps you do these projects and pursue some things that you want to with creating the content and educating other people. And Mikey Master says it there in the chat, working for yourself is a lot more hours than working for the man. So, but it is
Yeah,
it's a lot more rewarding, I think.
sure is. Yeah, long term, it may take a couple years to really get myself rolling here, but I think I should be okay. I think I can make it that far before I would have to go back to a full time job to save up again. But we'll see in the next few years. It's kind of make or break.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's just one of those. We've talked about it. I've talked about it listening on Crimson Clad show, and it's just one of those things that if you're going to be a content creator these days, if you want to make it a full time deal, you got to get real creative and you got to hustle. And there's just all kinds of ways to do that now with the internet. So it is exciting times for people that want to just live their passions and try to make it in content creation and doing different things on with cryptocurrencies.
That's my goal. My goal is to earn enough in Steam to buy stuff to then feature it on my video, which are then tax write offs because I report everything I earned and pay my taxes. So I really plan on turning it kind of into a business. I can expense and earn my Steam and pay it out and buy myself what I need for the next video or project and keep rinsing and repeating.
Yeah, most excellent. That's a really good way of doing it. Similar to myself, I got business going this last year, and just get an accountant or somebody to help you out, and that can help you, not have to pay as much in taxes and everything. So,
Yeah, having expenses helps. Like all my
yep,
master notes I run, those are all expenses that I report to the IRS. All my virtual private server costs, all of my DNS costs.
yeah,
If I have to buy dual monitors for my terminals, that's going to be a business expense. And so, like, if I have, say, I earn a few $1,000s in altcoins, well, I also have a few $1,000s in expenses. And the U.S. tax system makes it pretty fair, at least, to get those things written off. Not completely fair. I think no tax would be completely fair, but
yeah.
I'll take what I can get.
I'm in agreement there with you. The income tax is involuntary, and we didn't actually have one back in the day. It got snuck in there, pretty sneakily, and so yeah, I'm with you on that one. No income tax. Um, so I see that you're really into photography, but you're doing it all like kind of in the infrared and UV spectrum. What's the thing about infrared and UV that you really like?
Well, I got stuck reading Wikipedia, reading up on specialized photography one day, and I came across the infrared photography page, and I saw some of the pictures for examples they showed. I was just like, this is just looks so strange. And I got the opportunity to buy a used camera from a coworker of mine. We met up for some food and we traded. I actually gave him half the payment in crypto and the other half in cash. He accepted Dash for that payment of his camera. And from there, I bought the camera and shipped it off to Life Pixel, which is a company. I think it's on the West Coast, and they basically take apart the camera and they replace the mirror inside that would usually cut out infrared and ultraviolet. And from there, you can then take infrared and ultraviolet photos using the right kind of lens on it and the right kind of filters. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do at first, honestly, making stuff. I just wanted to get
Yeah.
the camera modified and just start taking pictures. I
Oh,
can tell you my white balance was all off at first. Photo Visions, if you know that steemian, he told me my white balance was off, and he's like, "Your colors are too red. Do you know about white balance?" And I told him I didn't know much, and he sent me a guide on how to fix it. And instantly, my photos got so much better as soon as I just fixed my white balance. And these days, I just go into GIMP, which is like Photoshop. It's a free version of that, and I just hit auto white balance, and it turns my photos from these just strange colored photos to the perfect color and contrast. So I've just been experimenting. Just was never a photographer really. I've owned one other DSLR before this,
yeah.
but I found a community that it was probably an underrepresented topic. There wasn't a lot of people posting infrared and ultraviolet photography. So what I decided to do was buy the camera and just start posting, and people love it. They really, really like it. It seems they do some of my best posts besides my solar projects and other real techie projects that I work on.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I was watching one of your videos that you were talking about how you had your video going and you were showing the trees and you're describing how you know that's you can see how the tree is healthy when it shows you that really bright white on the trees because
Yeah,
that means that they're not dried out or anything.
exactly. It's learning about the infrared photography has just continued to make me want to do more of it. It's just the whole science involved with how plants react to the light that comes from the sun. Like you were saying, the satin white color that comes off the tree's leaves are rejected infrared light that the plant is battling. It's trying not to let it in to the leaves. If it lets it into the leaves, the plant dries out. So what you're seeing is like a bright reflection of the plant's metabolism fighting off the ultraviolet and infrared light. It's really cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's really neat. Uh, yeah, what made me curious was that a lot of the people that are looking at UFOs and trying to do like the extraterrestrial contact stuff, they often film in the infrared, and they can supposedly see the craft in the infrared spectrum sometimes. So I was wondering if you were into any of that kind of stuff since you were doing the ultraviolet and infrared photography.
Yeah, actually, the way I came across full spectrum photography, which is letting in infrared and ultraviolet and the visual spectrum, like the entire spectrum, was watching a Ghost Adventures episode. The show it's a little hard to watch. It's a little abrasive. There's certain people on that show I would say that take it a little too seriously, but I love their technology. And I love seeing them take like an Xbox Kinect system and being able to see patterns from it. They've done amazing things with their technology. And full spectrum cameras was one of them. They had full spectrum cameras that they would take, and they would get orbs and other strange lights. And I've even caught some unexplained lights myself with my full spectrum camera.
Wow, that's very neat. That's very interesting. Yeah, because it's always there, but we're not seeing that spectrum, so it's the camera can detect it. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, our eyes, we can't really see the ultraviolet or infrared. I heard there's actually certain mutations in people's genetics that have a different kind of eye, or the layer on their eye is different. So there are a few people out there that can see into these spectrums, but it's incredibly rare. You would have to have that special mutation in your genes that doesn't shape your eye the way normal people's eyes do. But with the camera, I can show it all.
That's very cool. Yeah, and that kind of brings we've talked in these late night chats usually on Mondays with Rondon about some interesting topics, and one of the topics was kind of like how people have certain abilities, and Rondon shared a story about him playing poker one time and like almost having telepathy. But I think some of that is actually, like you were saying, maybe people have different abilities for things like you were saying, maybe you can see in different spectrums, or maybe some people can read people a little bit better and are really hyper observant on maybe emotions, things like that. And they're able to really like plug into different things.
Yeah, I mean, if you could see in a different spectrum of light, you might be able to see someone's skin get flushed in a different way that someone else might not be able to. So very much so, it's possible, and you know, people that have that mutation probably don't even know they do. They just think it's normal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've talked to one of my buddies that he would tell me that he could do, maybe a little precognition kind of things and stuff like that. And I think, he's one of those people that kind of has like a photographic memory. So I don't know if it's like he's processing the information a little bit faster than other people are, or what's going on. But it's interesting just to hear these things from people and see, the implications of them is pretty fascinating to me.
Yeah, and like Peachy Mod was saying, women can see different varieties of color better than men. I think the explanation was they were foragers and they would be able to see different shades of like apples and pears and really have a better eye for it because the men were out hunting animals and doing stuff like that. The women were collecting the berries and fruit. So
Yeah,
I think through evolution, we literally do have changes like that have occurred.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, so Mikey Masters said, I think something is red and my wife has 25 different names for it.
Right?
Cool. So yeah, I see that you get out in the woods a little bit. You go out and you try to do some hiking and stuff.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've been pushing my boundaries. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I lived in the city my whole life.
okay.
I didn't really. I kind of. I went out to a place called Glamis once, which are some sand dunes that are out in the California desert. If you're into off roading, you probably heard of Glamis, but it's a really cool place that I camped for 3 nights, and that was like my first time really being out in the woods for a few days and not just taking a day trip. But ever since then, I've been trying to go out and camp every so often as I get way too comfortable sleeping in my bed. But going out, it pushes my comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, very cool, man. So yeah, you spend most of your time out, on the West Coast, I guess. So, what made you pick up and move?
Oh, well, it was from my mother. I'm an only child, and my mother's divorced. So
Okay.
I take care of her, and her health hasn't been good for the last 15 years. So I've just been taking care of her, and we found a house for both of us. And I just check on her every day. She has caregivers. So I'm just watching over her in Georgia. And the reason it was Georgia specifically we moved to is we have other family members in Georgia.
Okay.
And our hope was to be closer to family. We'd have more support, and my mother would be happier. And just I can pick up a job anywhere really in IT as long as I find a city of a dense enough population. There's always going to be some admin or engineering or tech work.
Okay. Very cool, man. Yeah, I love that I love that part of the country. I'm guessing you're in the northern part of Georgia, close in the Appalachians and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I'm up on the foot of the Appalachians. I can get up to the one of the AT trails within an hour.
Oh man. Yeah, that's a beautiful area. I love it. I
It
love it.
is. I just been appreciating it more and more. As a good friend of mine that's from Georgia, he was an Eagle Scout and he really knows the woods really well. And he points out like listen to the birds and you hear how the birds over there are making that different sound, but it's quiet over on the other side of the woods. He's been showing me how to use like sound as vision and trying to understand my reality directly around me from all the how the animals react. And it's been an amazing experience just going in the woods and listening. Most people don't know how to do that, it seems.
Yeah, yeah. I got into hunting. I got into bow hunting a few years ago, and with my dad, and just sitting out there in nature. If you just sit still with your thoughts and just in quiet and just out there in nature, you become so much more attuned to everything. You begin to pick up the smallest little sounds here and there, and just hyper observant on motion. You start to pick out motion a lot, and yeah, those things start to really heighten if just are quiet, I guess, and try to calm even the mind. If I find it very meditative as well.
Yeah, it's you just kind of you're waiting. You're just listening and waiting. Were you in like a tree stand or a blind, or were you just free hunting?
Yeah, we do it. I gotta usually hunt out of a tree stand, and then also have a little blind, a little pop up blind
Oh,
uh,
great.
that I use. But yeah, I prefer the bow. I prefer the bow hunting. It is very difficult, but it's
Yeah, you have to get close.
yeah, you have to be 10 or at the most I'll take a shot is maybe 25 yards. Anything over that is a little crazy for me. I'm not that tuned in, but yeah, it's great just being out there in nature and just being a part of the woods.
Yeah, I just spend so much time staring at a computer screen otherwise. Getting out's a great way to decompress. Besides getting all sweaty and yucky, it's a lot of fun going out in the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have
Do you have a compound bow or a recurve bow? What kind you got?
yeah, I use a compound bow. It's a Hoyt. It's like a 65-pound draw, and it's got a 80% let off. So when you pull it back, then most of the weight is let off uh, in the compound, and so you can hold it in that position, ready to fire for a really long time. Um,
Oh, that's nice. I have a recurve bow. It's a 60-pound recurve.
oh, very cool. Yeah,
Yeah, you got to pull that thing really hard back.
yeah, man, you might be interested in checking out another steemian I had on the show a while back. His name is Beat King 13. He makes his own
Oh,
custom recurve bows.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, he's a cool guy.
King 13.
Yeah,
I'll write that down.
he's out in Texas, and he got into he's actually an ex NASA engineer, and he became a music producer, and he also does carpentry. He's a very Renaissance man.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll check out B King 13. I'll look him up.
Yeah, yeah, he's a neat dude. So so yeah, so you got all these. What got you into doing all the gardening and all that kind of stuff?
I just can't trust markets and corporations for my food. The bottom line, they tend to treat them with preservatives or genetically modified viruses.
Yeah,
And I just can't get around living my life eating that. And then maybe when I'm 45, like, oh, you have cancer. I'm like, I wonder why. Eating all of the stuff they put on probably gave me that. So I'm in my early 30s, and I changed my eating habits about 5 years ago, where it's if I can't read what's on the back of the ingredient label, I'm not going to buy it, or unless I can find an alternative. And I've learned just to make a lot of my own foods and grow my own foods is you can't find what's sprayed on stuff, regardless of labels for prepackaged food. Trusting things that are from the market, I just didn't want to do that. So I started growing what I could myself, and I get a thrill out of growing plants. It's like having a pet. You know, you can see it grow from a tiny little seed all the way up to flower and producing fruits. I really love the idea of creating life that way.
yeah, man. I have a similar thing, and the beauty of it as well is you can see something that can even be at the edge of you don't even think it'll live, and then it all of a sudden you see life come out of it and everything, and it is incredible.
Yeah, and just seeing the fight between insects and plants are pretty amazing. I try to capture it with my camera and post it on Steam when I can.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I recently watched a video on the topic that we're talking about is from Luke Rudowski and We Are Change, and he had on a doctor that was describing what Roundup is actually doing in the ecosystem, and there's an area in Louisiana called I think it's called Cancer Alley, but they discovered that all the runoff from the glyphosate and the Roundup, it's all kind of concentrating down in this one area, and what they found through their studies was that the mitochondria is actually in communication. The mitochondria in the cells is actually in communication with living microorganisms of bacteria and viruses and things like that. And so when you cut off that communication, which is what Roundup does, it's antimicrobial. It's pretty much destroying any of the microbiome that happens in the soils and on the plants. And so what that's doing is actually leading to really high rates of cancer, because the cells get confused and they can't enter into communication with other cells, which is what kicks off the cancer. So
Yeah, I think that glyphosate's like a carpet bombing tactic to killing bugs, and I don't think it's going to work.
no, and so many, actually lawsuits are starting to actually go through, and they're starting to pay out damages to people. So, one of the big takeaways that the doctor said at the end of it is exactly what you're doing, is just that, people just start trying to grow some of your own food, and then, just everybody start planting a garden, essentially.
Yeah, and it gives you a routine as well. For a lot of people, like, not that I need like cause, like I have a lot of cause and drive right now in my life, but for some people, just starting a garden is the difference between being bored and having something to look forward to every day. It's really an amazing therapy to start a garden.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Yeah. So CryptoPie says that his parents just eat vegetable soup and stewed fish and vinegar, and they're still strong as teens. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that vinegar has fermented effect. I try to eat fermented foods like sauerkraut and pickles and kimchi and all different kinds of fermented greens and other types of vegetables. Goes That's one of the superfoods I think most people don't know about, is introducing some fermented food in your life.
Yeah. Oh man, I love some kimchi.
Oh, I love this. I love spicy food. I make my own mayonnaise and I add hot sauce. And anytime I eat kimchi, it's not as hot as my mayonnaise, but it has that spice to it that I like.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. I have to add some of that sriracha. I love sriracha on stuff. Put that sriracha on everything.
Yeah, that taste of that chili powder. I used to grow pepper plants, and they were extra spicy where I lived because pepper plants that are in wetter environments contain more capsaicin. Because the
Oh really?
capsaicin is an antifungal, and wetter environments produce more fungus, so they have to have higher capsaicin levels to fight off that fungus. So I had some very, very hot peppers growing in my garden.
Oh wow, that's very interesting. The previous one of the previous podcasts, Breezen was talking about using peppers and garlic as a way to keep out the pests as well. Uh,
Nice.
so as organic pest control, said she had really good success with that. Um,
Yeah, that's important to me, especially raising bees. I don't want to have a colony collapse just because I cheaped out on some chemicals.
yeah, yeah. Tell me about the bees. I see that you're a fan of the carpenter bees, and you make the shelters for them.
Actually, the mason bees and the leafcutter. The carpenter
Okay.
bees are those big bees that bore holes in your deck and other wood. I
Okay.
don't like those. It's the mason bees, which they're like the size of a honeybee, a little smaller,
Oh.
and they don't live in a nest. Well, they build their own nest, but they don't live in a hive like most colony bees are. And they look for any hole that they can crawl into, and they collect pollen, and they ball up this pollen into like a little ball, and they lay their larva next to it, and then they seal off the hole, and then the little larva will eat that pollen sac that the bee left behind for like 6 months or a year, and they come back after the frost.
Hmm.
But the carpenter bees, those are the ones, the big black bumblebees usually, and they usually only eat wood. They don't really pollinate anything from what I've seen. So I try to capture those, and I try to raise the
Okay.
mason and leafcutter bees.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Yeah, I didn't know about the mason bees. Yeah, that's very interesting. So how uh, how do you set up? I saw that you had, one of the I actually saw your little rig on. You were trying to film some of these guys in your little house that you created for them.
Yeah.
How did that turn out? Were you able to capture some video of them coming and going?
Sure did. I set up my little SJ cam, which is like a GoPro. It's a generic GoPro, and got some great buzzing. Like having the camera in the bee house, you could hear the buzzing all around you. That was pretty cool. And you could even hear them like inside of their tunnels. It almost sounds like they're flicking off pollen, like they're making these weird little vibration sounds. I
Hmm.
can't see inside of these homes because they're all built out of wood, but I do plan on building some see-through containers, and that's what I've been working on recently with my bee planks or my bee boards, and those will be completely serviceable, which means when the bees lay their larva and the larva eats the pollen sac, they go through metamorphosis and they make a cocoon like a caterpillar does to become a butterfly, and I can collect these cocoons and store them safely. If I don't do this, predatory wasps and beetles and other things will start to knock down the population of those mason bees. So my plan is to build these
Huh.
bee boards because they allow me to service the homes. The ones you probably saw during the spring, those are not serviceable. Those are bamboo sticks, and breaking them open would probably crush the bees inside. So I've been
Okay.
learning. I've been learning about the different generations of bee homes as I've been doing this now.
Oh, this is very cool. So do you get any products off the mason bees, or is it just that they are very useful for pollinators?
At the moment, they are just great pollinators. My blueberry bushes have so many berries, they're tilting over. I've
Wow.
never seen such a great success rate in pollination in my yard ever. But I do want to collect pollen. Like I said, they bring the pollen into the little homes and they lay a pollen sac, but they just completely cover themselves in pollen. Normal bees have an organ that hang under their legs, the honeybees, and it looks like a little sac under their legs.
Hmm.
And mason bees don't have these sacs. So for mason bees to get all the pollen, they have to roll around in the flower and like completely get covered like a sand cookie and in the pollen. And then they fly back, usually broadcasting it all the way across their flight route, and then go into the home. And I think they shake it off. I think that's what I'm hearing, that vibrating sound in their home, is they're shaking it off, and they're then building a home out of it. But I think I can collect pollen.
Hmm.
There are pollen traps that normal beekeepers use. It forces the bee to crawl through like a wire mesh, and when it does, it kind of combs their hairs, and it will knock off some of that pollen. So
Okay.
I built a pollen trap, but at this moment there are no solitary bees out around where I live. I either need to wait till the middle of the summer, or I might have to wait until spring again, when the mason bees make a fresh generation and come out again.
Oh wow, that's very neat. Yeah. So what are you gonna use the pollen for? Is just like kind of like an allergy thing or something like that?
Yeah, I've been eating local pollen and local honey for about 5 years now, and I no longer get fevers during allergy season. I would get such backed up sinuses during allergy season that I'd get a sinus infection, and my sinus infection would turn into a cold, and then sometimes a fever, and I usually be sick for about 2 weeks during springtime. I haven't had that in about 5 years, ever since I started eating local honey and eating pollen pellets, which you can get from the local farmer's market, which come locally from plants around where you live, which is how you build resistance, or at least that's what's claimed, how you build resistance to them.
Man, very
But
cool. Yeah.
I might sell them. I might, if I can collect enough pollen,
Yeah.
I might sell it. I want to use the Steam co-op. Forgot the name of them.
Yeah. The Homesteaders Co-op. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, the Homesteaders Co-op. I'm planning on possibly selling the bee cocoons that I harvest in a few years. I'm planning on selling the bee boards so other people can raise bees, and I'm planning on selling the pollen if that works too.
Oh
These are
man.
all plans. We'll see what comes to fruition.
Yeah, that's excellent, man. That's very cool. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really easy process to get started on there, and yeah, you just got to go to that website or reach out to Sage Scrub, and he can help you get started on there. But yeah, man, it's a really cool thing, and even on there, there's that opportunity to barter with each other for different things as well. So If somebody's making something or has some seeds or whatever, you trade seeds for pollen or whatever, or
Yeah,
bee
yeah.
boards and things like that. So it's a really neat project that started. And yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be.
I poked around on there. They have a lot of stuff for sale, mostly seeds, vegetables once in a while. I think I even saw someone selling blackberry brambles, like the little stalks that you could plant in your yard and grow them. They're out
Yeah,
of stock, but I thought about you when I saw those.
yeah. Mountain Jewel, they're working on trying to do a lot of that propagation and trying to offer that as a big thing through the Homesteaders Co-op as well. And yeah, if you get involved with them, they also have started to do some free tutorials for the vendors, and they're doing like weekly calls and helping people out, getting a little bit more knowledge on how to market themselves and market themselves as a as a business, and some cool things happening there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to possibly working with them if I can get some good enough products out. I'm not all that good with a router, with a wood router. So I come up with some nice boards, and then it kind of goes awry on some of the cuts. So I'm trying to get some consistency before I put my name on it and put it up on a marketplace. And I also want to test them. I built all these boards, but I just don't know for sure if the bees are going to take to them. So I kind of want to wait until I have a successful cycle with these bee boards before I start selling them. I would hate it if I shipped them out and people trusted me and just assumed the bees were going to take to them. I don't know if they will, but from all the guides I've seen on the internet, this is a common way that people grow solitary bees or building these boards. So hopefully they'll work. Just kind of have to time and tell. And it's kind of like the saying, if you build it, they will come. That's how it seems with the insects.
Yeah. Yeah, so Sunravel Me says bee boards sound like a band name.
The title of my post was "Been busy building bee boards."
some nice alliteration today. Today was the $5 word day, so we'll say alliteration. Oh, that's cool. So you're also into doing some stuff with hardware, and looks like a little bit of solar power. I think one of the first things that we looked at when Jack was hanging out. I see Jack's in the audience. It's good to see him hanging around. But was that you were doing like a solar powered pump project where you were collecting some of the water off of your air conditioner, and then I guess you were using that in your garden.
Yeah, so what I have is a 50-gallon barrel buried in the ground. It's an exact version of the one you see in that thumbnail, that big blue barrel. And what I did was I ran my condensation tubes from my air conditioner. That's that little tube that you see dripping water every few minutes. And I ran that into my barrel. And I learned in the summertime, I guess due to our high humidity in the south, that barrel will fill up every few days with 50 gallons of condensate water. And at the time, I was using a hand pump, and that really sucked. I did not like getting 55 gallons out with a hand pump. So I quickly tried to find a solution, and I found a kit for sale that had a little battery. It was probably the size of a remote control car battery, and it had a tiny little solar panel, and it was designed to mount on top of these 55-gallon barrels. It was built for it. Well, that battery never really seemed to totally drain the barrel. Like, it might get 25% of the way there, and then it would flash like insignificant charge.
Okay.
So I was constantly draining the battery, and it was just not a good product. And there were no other products on the market for what I was trying to do. The only thing was this little kit with this undersized battery and this undersized solar panel. And I said, let me try to build something. And I got to this project, and it took good 6 months of me sourcing the parts, me drawing things out, watching other people's videos. And eventually I built it and flipped the switches, and I didn't let the smoke out. So I know I did something good enough, and the lights came on, and I had a pump, and it worked very well, and it still works very well. I just used it a few days ago, and I'm constantly using it when we get droughts. And we did get a drought about a week ago where for 2 weeks we didn't get any rains in the area. And I was filling up that barrel every day to water my blueberries and other fruit bearing plants. As if they don't get water, they're going to drop their fruit.
Yeah.
So I used that barrel recently just to keep my garden alive.
Hmm.
The
So
pump is a utility pump. CryptoPie is asking. It's one. It's called a transfer pump. You can use
okay.
it for transferring fluids between containers. So it's just a 12-volt transfer pump hooked up to my solar charge controller, and that solar charge controller goes to a little car battery, and that battery sits in a little box and supplies everything. And there's a panel up on my roof.
Okay. So is it are you using a PWM or is it an MPPT charge controller?
Yeah, I forgot the brand of it. Rhenology, I think is the brand.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if it's a P. You mean like a pulse modulated design or the other type? Or
Yeah.
you mean
Yeah.
like PWM?
There's the pulse width modulated charge
Yeah.
controllers, and then the other one is the maximum power point tracking MPPT, and
Oh.
and
I don't know.
the MPPTs they store some of that power that's coming from your panel and capacitors, and then bleed it out so that you don't have to get as high of a voltage panel to charge your battery. So you could use like a lower wattage panel, lower power rated panel with the MPPT controllers in comparison to the PWM controllers, because they're just like kind of pulsing in that charge from the panels.
Gotcha. I'm not sure. I could look it up and figure that out. But off the top of my head, it's just a Rhenology brand, and it was a kit. It came with the charge controller and the panel.
Okay, cool. And yeah, so that works no problems for you. You just flip a switch to run your pump, I guess, or
Yeah, I have a switch on the side of it,
okay.
but I also have a breaker going through it, just in case water ever penetrated the switch. I'd hate for it to spontaneously turn on, drain the barrel, and dry run my pump and burn it out.
Yeah.
So I've set it up on a breaker. So I have to flip a breaker in the panel before the switch will work, and that protects water intrusion from shorting out the switch.
Awesome. Awesome, man. That's a very brilliant way to get all that set up and make use out of your that water that's just going to go to waste out of your air conditioning system.
Yeah, it's been working great. Eventually, I might get a little clogged in the barrel in the ground, and I might unmuck it. But I try to run some cleaners through it every year to make sure that it doesn't get too mucky in there.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, so man, yeah, that's very interesting. So, is your property set up so that you can kind of just, once you get that pump going, that it's just siphoning down into, wherever you're trying to send it?
At the moment, I'm carrying water containers over to wherever I am.
Okay.
So it's kind of low tech at the moment. I fill up my little water barrels and I carry them over to the plants. And it's exhausting, so I do need a better solution.
Yeah.
I've thought about building like a remote controlled wheelbarrow system, but that's so much of a project. I'm never
Yeah.
going to see the light of day. And I can't dedicate that kind of time right now. So I'm
Yeah.
schlucking these barrels or these containers of water to my plants. And I try to do it early in the morning. That way the sun isn't like beating down on me while I'm doing the work outside. So I have a pretty good system down when we have droughts like that.
Yeah. What if you built yourself a little water tower with one of those 55-gallon barrels and just pumped it up into that, and then you just use gravity to take it where you need it?
That actually is a plan of mine. I'm planning on building a rain barrel system that will collect from a gutter, and it's going to be about 10 feet up, so I have some decent water pressure. So that you read my
Awesome.
mind there, making stuff that is in my plans.
Awesome. Yeah, man. Cool.
I even have an idea of building it's called a Japanese deer scare. I don't know if you've seen those things that tilt over with the
No.
water.
No.
Oh yeah, it was in the movie Kill Bill. It's this little thing as water fills it up. It's a bamboo tube that tips over, and then it fills up
Oh,
again, and it makes this cool sound. So
yeah.
I'm planning on setting up a bleed off system off my barrel, and I'll have this little water feature going. So I got this cool idea, but we'll see what comes to fruition.
Oh man, that's really cool. The Japanese deer scare. Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like a piece of bamboo, and then the water comes in and fills it up, and then it drains out.
Yep, that's it. It kind of takes its center of gravity and tips it over, and then the back of it raises up again. It's like a odi doshi. It has a strange Japanese name, but it's known as a deer scare.
Oh, very cool, man. Yeah, that'll be neat. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So is your ultimate goal just to be able to live mostly just off the land, I guess?
Yes. So I have a story growing up in Los Angeles about being off the grid.
Uh huh.
We had a record heat wave where it was probably like 110 degrees for like 2 weeks. And LA County's power grid was underbuilt at the time, and the power lines burnt out. There was too many people running air conditioners, and we had a massive infrastructure scale fail. And for about 2 weeks, most people didn't have electricity, and it got really scary. And our houses was about 85 to 95 degrees in the house. And ever since then, I can't trust the government to take care of me.
Yeah.
So I've been always trying to have an exit plan, or either be kind of moderately comfortable if all these luxuries were taken away. And that's why I like to camp and go out and be out in nature to just be ready in case that thing called air conditioning that was only created 50 years ago disappears one day. And
Oh yeah.
I want to have my own property. The 1 acre piece of land I'm on now it's insufficient. It's just too small, and where I live, I wouldn't be happy with it. So I want to buy probably 30 acres. I
Oh
think 30 acres will give me more than enough. I could have some woods. I could have a clearing. I could have a little homestead area,
yeah.
and then I want to build up. Maybe I'll start the yurt, build a yurt for a few $1,000s, live in that, and while I build a foundation of a house, if I'm able to. I have some friends that know how to build these things, so I may recruit them for the job. And
It,
long term, I want to have a homestead.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think it is the ultimate defiance of the current system is to reject it and then build the new system that makes it obsolete. And you do that by becoming as self-reliant as possible. And I'm definitely on the same boat as you. And recently I've come across, um, and it is a lot of what I do. Building the solar trailer and things like that is having that resiliency in mind, and the people that can kind of see that the system is very fragile as it stands. And just like you're saying, there's so many examples of, these things happening where we have natural disasters and things like that. People can see that these systems that are built are very fragile, and the responses are not very good on the side of government. So you really are, the ball is in your court on whether or not you are prepared for these things, and if you can help other people out. And so, the best way of doing that is to be, as reliant as you can first, and then just try to help your community and the other people around you get more in that mindset too. And I think you do that by showing them the better way. And so,
Right. You got to help yourself before you can help others, I believe. And once I have a sustainable property, I would love to turn that over into the community. For example, have you seen the hog control systems that contain large amounts of pigs using remote control gate systems?
no,
So you can buy this gate system, and it's all cell controlled and has cameras, and you basically attract what's known as I think a sound or a wallow of pigs, like a family of them that would be in your land, and they're wrecking havoc and rooting everything up. You want to get rid of them, and you can trap them in this enclosure, and then obviously you have to dispatch them. But you all of a sudden have 20 pieces of pork. You
yeah,
could gut that and take that over to the local community service where they don't have any food. They're like, here's 200 pounds of pork. I didn't need this, and they were ruining my property anyway. So I'm looking forward to sharing with the community more once I have a surplus of resources, being that's
Yeah.
vegetables, wildlife, bees, whatever. I do want to share it back with everyone.
Man, that's very interesting. I know that the wild boar problem is a big problem. It's a big problem in Alabama and in I
Yeah.
guess our part of the country. And
Yeah,
so
we all deal with it. You can see rooting areas all over trails where they just rip up the ground, and they're just so invasive. They're spreading so quick. It's one of those things where it's kind of like the Africanized killer bee scare of the '90s. Like these pigs are going to take over if we don't do something about it.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's good. I actually have one of my buddies. They did a wild boar hunt in Florida, and we ate some of the wild boar meat. It's just a little bit it's a little bit tougher than your domestic hog. Um,
Did you grill it or roast it
I think he smoked it on. He had one of those like Traeger grills, and he smoked it on there.
for
And
a long time?
yeah, he did it. He did it low and slow, but it's still low and slow was still a little bit tough.
Yeah,
But
I heard if you do
they're
like
still
a
good eating.
yeah, they are good eating. The crock pot's the best way to deal with deer meat and other types of game meat I've encountered. Is to try to grill it or expose it to high heat too fast. It gets really tough.
Yeah, yeah. It's the hunting and a lot of the meals that we prepare when we're hunting is usually a stew in the crock pot because you can just get that going and then you can go and eat off of it whatever part of the day. And it is one of the you know it's one of the best ways of cooking when you have you're out and about and camping even if you can get a cast iron pot or something like that.
Oh yeah, I love cast iron.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I love to.
That's part of my expenses. It's just my cookware. Now that I make all my own food, I've been slowly accruing a bunch of cookware and different cooking tools like food processors and stand mixers and all that stuff.
Oh really?
Just making all of my own pastries now is just you can't find sweets that don't have 100 ingredients or like 40 to 60 grams of sugar. I don't usually add any sugar. The only sugar I'd add is if I have to like make the yeast raise or something like that. But I don't add much sugar in anything.
Nice. Yeah, I've never heard, I'm kind of I've never really had a sweet tooth, and so but I do like beer, and that is one thing that I have had to get over in the past is and that's exactly why I took a lot of those old beer bottles. I learned how to make candles out of them, and so
Oh, cool.
I had all these leftover beer bottles and needed to
I
make
made
some.
banana beer once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a banana tree, and they're so starchy. If you mix them with sugar, they break down into alcohol. So I
Oh.
had these big containers of cut up banana plant or banana trees, and I dropped a big old barrel of sugar in there. And I didn't taste it, but my friend Ryu Lincoln did taste it, and he's like, "Yeah, it's got alcohol in
Oh, nice.
it." Banana beer.
Yeah, that's something that I want to get into. Is one of my buddies showed me uh, how to make a yeah yeah how to make honey mead. Yeah, Jack, you're right. Yeah, it is a sweet tooth. But Breeze, you gotta share your wild boar recipe with us.
That'd be great once I catch something. I haven't caught any boars yet, but I'm hoping to get one.
Yeah, yeah, that'll be really interesting, man. I'm a big follower of Justin Rhodes on YouTube and his little permaculture homestead that he's doing, and one of his recent things is doing something called permaculture pigs. And he recently did the interview with Joel Salatin, that does the Polyface Farms in Virginia, and he's like a really big farmer, really big inspiration to me. And the way they do it is really interesting. They put their pigs on really deep mulch bedding, and so when you're using that deep mulch bedding, it keeps everything sanitized because the pathogens, they get worn down through that through the composting process, and so he calls it a carbonaceous diaper.
Oh, that's
uh,
an interesting idea of using the animals to increase the bioavailability of the soil.
ah, cool.
It's like growing mushrooms on your land. It brings up the nutrients into the surface where the plants can use it. All that mycelium, uh, or just pigs. You can use anything to really recondition soil.
Yeah, yeah. So it also helps to really trap the moisture, is what I found. So that when you're planting, one of the other guys that teaches this technique is I think his name is Paul. Uh, it's not Paul Wheaton, but it's Paul Giamatti or something. But he has a method called the Back to Eden Garden method, and he uses the deep mulch wood chips. And he's in an area where there's not that much rainfall. It's not a whole lot of rainfall like we get down here, and it really helps him to grow a lot of things and without having to use intensive. He has no irrigation set up in his system. It's all just that deep bedding. It helps retain so much moisture that he doesn't have to do any watering really.
That's very cool. I've done a Hager culture project, which is a form of permaculture. It's
Uh-huh.
I think it's spelled like it's a German word, Hegel
Oh, okay,
culture.
yeah. The Hugel culture, yeah.
Yeah, and it's where you take old logs and twigs and you bury them underground, and they become a long-term fertilizer for the ground.
Yeah, that works really well. We've done the similar thing with my folks' place, and then I've experimented with that on my little urban homestead that I just sold. I created a raised bed and then threw a bunch of tree matter in there and branches and things like that, and I haven't had to water that thing at all. It's just natural rainfall, and
Yeah,
everything
as
grows
those
like
logs
crazy.
retain it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. I love the system. It's something I just found online, and we had a really bad snowfall at one point, and it brought down a lot of trees. So I'm like, okay, well, I got a bunch of logs. I might as well do that project I saw on the internet. So I dug a trench and laid them down and buried it, and now that's one of my potato patches. So we'll see how that does.
Ah, nice. That's uh
Yeah.
that's something I'm looking toward is, yeah, I'm kind of a YouTube addict and trying to pull information from all these different sources. But another guy that I like is Rob Greenfield, and recently he did a video talking about the most calorie dense foods that you can grow, and it's he grows yams, this thing called yucca, or it's also known as cassava, and then sweet potatoes. And he says that these are the most calorie dense vegetables that you can grow, and you can pretty much survive off of growing those for your calories, and then the rest of your herbs and lettuces and fruits and veggies on the side.
That's my plan. I want to get really good at potatoes, and then I can get everything else down. But like you said, you can pretty much live off potatoes, I hear. Breeze mentioned the pawpaw leaves. Interestingly, I have a pawpaw plant, so I should give that a try. It has huge leaves, so maybe it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. She also said her secret to cooking boar meat is to slow roast the fuck out of it, and
Right,
and
that's what I was
stuff
thinking
and
too.
stuff
Crock
it.
pot's best way to go.
Yeah, cool. Nice, very cool. Yeah, so when I think of the pawpaw, I'm thinking, is that like a passion fruit? Does it create a fruit? Uh, that's what I think of when I think of pawpaw. But or is it
I've
something else?
never had a fruit from it. I've had a flower, and the flowers are known as caronistic or carnistic. They attract flies and things that think there's rotting flesh going on, and the flowers smell pretty bad. But I've never had a successful fruit yet. My pawpaw tree is only about 2 years old. I think it's just too young to even produce fruit. But the flowers smell terrible.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's this one tree that they plant all over in these subdivisions in Alabama. It's the Bradford pear tree, and
Oh, geez,
they're
that
like,
tree. I hate that tree.
oh, me too.
Yeah, we joke like we just wish there'd be a disease that would come out to wipe out all the trees. You can smell them before you see them.
Yeah, they put out so much pollen, they smell obnoxious, and they plant them everywhere because they grow so fast, but they're such a weak tree. It's like a really soft wood, and a stiff wind will knock them all down.
Right. It's like the loblolly pines. Like there's good pine trees and there's bad pine trees.
Yeah. So is that one of the things that your buddy teaches you as well, is when you go out in nature, is to kind of identify the different trees and different edibles and things like that?
He sure does, and he takes it one step further and sometimes sticks things in his mouth, and his mouth goes numb. So I'm trying to be careful not take his advice too much.
Yeah.
He once said, he's like, I didn't want to scare you on this hike, but I was getting a little weak, but I didn't want to scare you and tell you. I'm like, you should have told me. He's always been okay, but I like to take what he says, but there's just so much information coming out of him. As he was an Army Ranger, and he has a lot of perception when it comes to what's around him. And I have trouble taking it all in, but every time I go hiking with him, I think I learn something new.
Yeah, man. I got a buddy that was he did the training for becoming an Army Ranger, paratrooper, and he hurt himself in boot camp. But yeah, he talks about all the different things that you can use for survival techniques and stuff, and just I took him camping one time. Actually, we went tent camping, and he was like, I'm not used to this, man. I'm just used to digging a hole in the ground and just sleeping in that.
Yeah, it's amazing learning your friends' camping habits. I had a long-term friend I never went camping with, and he ended up being no problem camping at all, and I was the one having all the trouble, but I would have never known until we went camping together.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was surprised too, because it was like he didn't know how to put up a tent, and I was just like, How do you become an Army Ranger and know how to put up a tent?
Right, yeah, they dig holes, and depending if it's like snow weather, yeah, they don't really need to go up. They can just go down. I posted Ryu Lincoln's link right there. He doesn't post much at the moment, but I am trying to get him back on board to posting. But that's my good friend out there that we go out in the woods together. We just recently went out on a canoe trip, but my darn memory card is full. So I didn't get any video from that trip.
Oh, okay.
I pressed record and it said it was recording, but my memory card was filled. We caught a carp as well, like a 5-pound carp, and he struggled with that fish. It dragged the canoe all across the bank, and I only have it in my head. We didn't capture it on video, unfortunately.
Oh man, that's the worst. There's times that I've done that myself. I've got my GoPro. I'm all ready to go film, and I don't have the SD card in it because I was downloading videos and it was in my laptop or something. Yeah. So I feel the struggle is real.
Yeah, I wish it would tell me SD card full. It just said recording. It was acting like there was no problem. I hate it.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a bummer. So Breeze was saying with the pawpaw, she was saying that the male plants still give you pepinos, but only if there's another plant in proximity. So she's thinking if you don't have fruit, it could be a male plant. And then also says that cassava is a good sustainable plant, but it contains reasonable amounts of cyanide and needs to be processed correctly. Thank you.
Just like apple seeds. Apple seeds can have that too.
Yeah, I've read a little bit about this, and it's vitamin B17 is the thing. It's I read a book, World Without Cancer by G. Edward Griffin, and it talks about seeds and things that contain this cyanide component to them. And it turns out that your healthy cells create some kind of enzyme that blocks that cyanide component, but the cancer cells and things and those kind of things, they don't produce that enzyme, so they become directly targeted by it. However, you wouldn't want to, just like anything, you wouldn't want to eat a mountain of these things that have the cyanide component in them.
Yeah, it's funny how vitamins become toxins when you take too much of them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like anything else. You drink too much water and it'll kill you.
Yeah,
Uh,
too much distilled water will flush out the salt in your brain and make it swell up.
yeah, yeah.
Terrifying.
Even just regular water, you get like this hyperhidrosis thing in your cells, and it blows up your cells because they're
Yeah.
too full of water. So, yeah, I mean, everything has to be done in moderation, for sure.
Yeah, I drink distilled water, but I add salt back into my water. I soak salt in a container, and then it becomes what's called super saturated, where no more salt can enter the water.
Yeah,
And then I scoop that out with a teaspoon and add salt to my distilled water I drink, because I don't like the fluoride or the chlorine or anything else the city adds into my water.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same way. I don't like any of the fluoride. I got a really good water filter, similar to like one of those Berkey water filters. It's just
Hmm.
it's the Alexa Pure water filter, and I use that. I won't drink tap water anymore. I won't do it. And I've noticed a lot of changes overall in my mental ability, mental clarity after going through that process. I still eat kind of crappy, and so and like I said, I still kind of drink beer from time to time. So I'm not fully detoxified, but I've still noticed a lot of good positive benefits from just filtering the water.
Yeah, it's amazing just what getting clean water or mineral filled water that's local to what you're raised with can do. Because local water, your body knows it best. It's epigenetics. Your body evolved with your local water sources.
That's cool that you know that term. I was studying the Rupert Sheldrake guy, and he wrote a book called Morphic Resonance, but it goes through the whole epigenetic thing where you might have one of the examples in the book is that you have like a fruit fly that grows this like spine on its back, like part way through its life, like the parent might grow this spine on its back to help it defend against something, and then the the offspring, that spine is more pronounced, and so it's like a constant feedback loop is what he talks about, how everything is in constant communication with each other in the universe. And so that feedback loop is putting new information into what he calls a resonance, like a morphic field for biology. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing how nature's just been on autopilot and it doesn't really need any input from us humans.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. So I see we got Crimson Clad and we got Mikey Masters talking about planting some stuff, and yeah, even if you have bad soil, you can start off with a raised bed and do just the hugelkultur thing, and then yeah, just you might have to start off with bringing in some soil, buying some soil, and putting in that raised bed. But if you have crappy soils, I would suggest starting with some raised beds for sure.
Yeah, taking that bad native soil out and mixing in some wood chips, like you were saying earlier, go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, and where she lives, she should grow some cannabis. She has the option to do so. We
Hell
don't
yeah.
even get the option.
Hell yeah.
It's actually really good for your soil. If you're not even going to use the buds, it's good for crop rotation, I hear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I got my old co-host Jack Tubb is big into cannabis as well, and it's changing. After they put that farm bill out and doing the hemp,
Oh, yeah.
I'm seriously looking into what it'll take for me to grow some industrial hemp, and I think from just early investigation, they make you buy some kind of license to grow it. So, or makes the government's gonna try to get their piece any way they can.
Yeah,
But
you have to have a permit, I think. You can't just now start
yeah,
growing hemp. You have to apply, and
yeah,
if it's anything like it's been a rec and medicinal, those fees are tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It's absurd. It doesn't allow small people to get into it, which is unfair.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it just naturally grows, so it's kind of silly. So
Well,
I
hopefully
think
we'll get past all that stuff. Once it's been legalized for a while, we can get rid of the over regulation and let the small people in.
yeah, man, for sure. Well, hopefully one day we'll get to a point, and is my goal and my drive toward this whole self-reliance, responsibility, personal responsibility, is that we all become very resilient communities that all interact with each other without the need for governments anymore. I think we're getting to a point in time where we kind of have those two choices, whether to keep going down this road of governments and people trying to rule over you, or we can be personally responsible and self-reliant. And I think those are kind of the two choices. But whatever it is, I'm for voluntary interactions with people. So that's the main point.
Yeah, I think now we have a communication system. We don't need a government to represent us anymore. We now have such good technology. We, as people, can be represented as a whole and not need dukes and people that represent us.
Yeah, I think so. And I think maybe it'll be like maybe we've kind of come to a point where we need to start raising our vibration and start to understand that we have all the power to lead ourselves, and a lot of that comes from actually eating the good food and being healthy and taking that power back of food sovereignty.
Sure is. You have more energy to fight the power.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, yeah. So talking into alternatives and things like that, I see that you make some posts about you're a silver stacker as well.
Yeah, SSG got me curious about owning some precious metal. So I took some Bitcoin that I was just holding that's some spending cash, and I found SD Bullion that accepts Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. I don't have any BCH, but I did have some BTC. So I tried to buy some, and I failed at first. I didn't realize my wallet didn't support the Bitcoin payment protocol BIP, and
Ah,
I had to download a wallet. I went with Mycelium, the Mycelium wallet in the end, which
yeah,
allowed me to accept their payment invoice, which was really interesting.
yeah.
Usually, it's just like send to this public address, and we'll tell you when it's confirmed. But this one was very different, and I had to learn something new about Bitcoin all of a sudden.
Ah, interesting. Oh man,
Yeah,
you know what? You talk about mycelium, it kind of triggers my memory a little bit. But one of the first times I was gonna go buy some Bitcoin was on a peer-to-peer deal off of mycelium, and it was somebody in Georgia.
huh? Whoa.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
it's a good wallet that I think it's SRV wallet, so you don't have to download the whole blockchain. 'Cause nowadays, like download the whole blockchain's like 250 gigabytes
wow, yeah, I
for
didn't know that.
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
huge.
That was the wallet and the project I really got behind in the beginning there, because I got in probably around the same time, maybe 2014, maybe is when I really got into it. But yeah, my Mycelium wallet was the first one I read about, and I was so stoked that they created this token, and put I think I put 1 Bitcoin in that token. That was probably the dumbest thing I've ever done. But they ended up like just up and running with all that Bitcoin that they collected with us. That token may still be around. I don't know. But
Oh, they exit scammed you?
they did the exit scam because they
Oh,
were taking all this money to create all these new products and all this stuff. And, they created this colored tokens. It was back when
oh yeah, colored coins. I
they
remember
first
those.
started doing colored coins for Bitcoin. And so
Yeah.
they created the Mycelium token. And I don't know, I haven't looked it up in a while. I probably still have that in a wallet somewhere. But I don't know if it's worth anything.
Yeah,
The
if you
token
can move
itself.
it, wait till all-time highs and just dump it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the projects, and they were telling they were going to release all this cool stuff, and it kind of fell through. So it was disappointing, but they were one of the early wallets that I got and used. So
Yeah, I remember Mycelium. They've been around a long time. Do you remember Satoshi Dice?
no, I never got involved with any of that kind of stuff in the beginning.
At one point, if you went on the Block Explorer, it was all like 95% traffic was Satoshi Dice, and it was like the first app, really. Well, I guess you could say the Silk Road would be the first app, but following that, Satoshi Dice was the first legitimate, I guess you could say, app for Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was just like Magic Dice, I guess. You send some coins, it does a random number generator, you win.
Yeah. Hello, are you still there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you dropped out there for a second for
Oh.
some reason.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, Satoshi Dice was the first app that I remember with Bitcoin, and it made up the majority of the traffic for the longest time.
Yeah. I was so, I learned a lot in the back in I think a lot of my hard lessons learned were that year. For trying to make some investments and doing some things, and then not holding the paper wallet. I lost a paper wallet that probably had, I don't know, it probably had at least a quarter of a Bitcoin in there. But yeah, man, it's the early days. There's some strong lessons learned in that time.
There were, and the mining community was just amazing. The leaps and bounds that were growing. They went from CPU to GPU to ASIC farms, and now we're at like companies owning ASIC farms battling.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The mining operations. One of my buddies actually, he got into mining early on, and there were actually several of them that were doing some mining early on, but they paid it no attention, and their stories of all of them have their wallets are just lost on a thumb drive somewhere, or they lost the thumb drive or something.
Oh.
Yeah.
I heard the horror stories of people digging through like their Goodwill pile that were about to give up their computer, as there was like 50 Bitcoins when you could CPU mine them when they were worth a fraction of a cent.
Yeah, there's so many out there like that. There's so many that were lost when it was first getting going. So back up your private keys, guys.
Yeah, and don't back them up just to flash drives. Think about if a solar flare happens.
Yeah.
Think about your magnetic drives and your flash drives. Back it up to a CD. People don't ever think about that. Use a CD for at least one of your backups.
Yeah, absolutely. And put your seed phrases on something like a stainless steel little note card or little ID, or what am I trying to say? Business card.
Yeah, I've seen those. You can pop out different letters, and you have this little card with your seed phrase. Those things are pretty cool because we couldn't get burned up in a fire. The paper wallet could totally get burned up in a fire.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and that's something that's very important for all of your cryptos is to do some kind of metal, something on metal, because you don't know if it's going to be a fire or something like that. But get yourself like a firebox, or
Yep.
one of those stainless steel business cards or something to back up your private keys.
Yeah, or keep it in two places. Keep it like in a safe deposit box and in your house. Like, don't keep it in one place where if your house got burned down, you'd lose it all.
Yeah, and maybe create like a Da Vinci Code treasure map for people.
Call it Satoshi's Treasure version 2.
Yeah, exactly. So that people have to go through some work to get at your stuff.
There's been some pretty amazing visual puzzles out there that some real cryptographic people have looked into and found some coins. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Former FBI decoders, they've found codes in there and cashed it out.
Oh wow, yeah, that's an interesting thing that's happening. The Satoshi Treasure thing that's going on. Yeah, El Gecko put it up there. That's cool. It's a little metal way that you can type out your seed phrases. So, but don't pull a breeze and share them with other people. so so yeah, that's great, man. That's cool.
So your little structure you built for the trailer you have, I heard you said it was EMP hardened. Do you have a Faraday cage surrounding your trailer?
No, so each one of the outputs of the solar panels gets this ferrite clamshell, and from my understanding, what that does is it softens the pulse. So some of the magnetic field gets stored into the ferrite clamshell, so it's not a shock of a pulse.
And burn out the wires, yeah.
Yeah, so part of it goes into that, and then also internally to the charge controller and the inverter system, there's some components in there on this Solarc system that are EMP hardened themselves. So how they did that, I'm not sure.
Cool.
But that's the system. It's a company that started for the prepper community, people that were thinking about, the Carrington event, kind of like an EMP pulse from the sun, or things like there could be a nuclear explosion in the atmosphere. I'm not so worried about things like that, but
Fallout's going to kill us a few months later if that's the case.
But the EMP from the sun is a good likelihood.
Yeah, totally. We've had so many close calls, people don't even know. We've just been extremely lucky.
Yeah. And so the infrastructure isn't really built for that. So, that's one of the things I kept in mind, and I was looking around for a product for doing some EMP shielding kind of thing. And another one of my YouTube people I follow is a guy, Engineer77 on YouTube, and he talked about this Solarc product and its EMP hardened capabilities. And so it doesn't mean it's EMP proof, it's EMP hardened. So, up to a certain point, you're going to be okay. But they've tested it out, and they say, it's good up to a certain point. But
interesting.
But yeah, that's what I've outfitted the trailer with, and the whole idea is to implement this thing in a natural disaster type scenario, or just use it to help accelerate the development of little villages, I guess.
Anywhere you travel to, you could give them power. Yeah,
little modern technologically empowered villages. So that was the whole premises behind what I've done and what I've built with this trailer. And I wanted to keep it open source, so I blogged about the entire build on Steemit. And I'm also coming out and going to be doing a self-educational series on the whole thing, on the whole build. And so I'll video that whole thing of the actually going through all the components of the system, and how I hook everything up, and publishing a PDF of that, and then also videos on that. So people can replicate it or make it better.
Cool. What about your generator? You have a gas generator on there too?
Exactly. Yep. It's so, if you have prolonged periods without the sun, then you can run that generator, and it's also tied into the charge controller. And so when you have longer periods without the sun, you just kick on your generator, and it's all tied into that smart charge controller, and it's looking at the state of the battery. And then with this system, to prolong the life of your battery, it's going to kick on the generator when the depth of discharge reaches about 90% is what they set it to. And
so it doesn't deep cycle the battery.
Yeah, it just keeps your battery at a really good level all the
That's
time.
nice. And you're
And so
using universal batteries, not the car batteries.
I'm using golf cart batteries. They're the cheapest batteries you can buy, and they're the wet cell batteries. They require some maintenance, but they are the cheapest batteries you can get on the market that I've found. And other than building, I'm looking into some lithium ion projects, DIY projects, because they potentially can have a longer lifespan, like a 25-year lifespan, if you take care of them. If you take care of them the right way, with battery management systems and things like that, and to keep them from going through a lot of temperature cycling. And so I'm looking into building some of those. And there's a guy, another YouTuber, Jehu Garcia, that is building these DIY lithium ion battery kits so that you can build your own DIY power walls like the Tesla Powerwall.
Oh, cool. So then you don't have to get their product. You can just build your own.
Exactly. And that's one of the big frustrations is some of the people that have ordered these Tesla Powerwalls, they're getting delayed on deliveries and things like that. And so in the meantime, there's all these recycled batteries or the secondary market for used batteries for the lithium ion batteries. And so there's resellers that'll test them out and make sure that they're all electrically checked out. They may not have like the full charge potential that they used to have. They may be partially depleted cells, but you get them at a cheap discount, and you can create your own power wall, and it's good for, as long as you keep a good battery management system hooked up to it, then you can extend their life for a very long time.
Right. If you don't let them drop below like 11 volts, or there's a certain threshold, I think, when if you let it drop below, it starts to damage the chemistry inside of them.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you set up your system well, then you can have a very long life battery pack, and you can do that for pretty cheap. And right now, I think it is a really cool thing for people to start looking into, because if you're building your own battery packs, then you're going to know how to troubleshoot your system. And then you're also, you don't have to hook it up to solar right away. You can look for deals for solar panels. I think in the next, few years, the price for those panels could come way down. And then, a lot of other energy alternatives are out there to do for producing energy. So right now, while the grid power is pretty cheap, that you can even use the grid power to power your battery packs. And then you run off your batteries for a certain portion of the day. Say when it's not, your utility charge is not going to be that high. And then you take the grid power for the rest of the time. So those are some things that you can kind of be thinking about right now. And instead of investing in this elaborate solar power system, you can just start with a battery pack and even try to build your own.
That's kind of where I've been at with my air conditioner setup. It's really simple. It's this 12 volts DC, one battery, one controller, one panel. Eventually, I want to build it where I can power my whole house, but you have to start somewhere and then kind of see if it works and scale it up. I've never ran any batteries in series or parallel, but that's probably my next step.
Yeah, it's no problem. And, just positive to negative to, from one terminal to the other battery, the negative on the other battery, on the next one for series, and then just positive, negative to negative, from battery to battery for your parallel connections. Yeah. So, I did, I did make some mistakes when first hooking up my batteries. I arced the crap out of them.
Got that cable turned red hot.
Oh man, I welded it to the post.
Yep.
So,
I've done it too. Don't feel bad. I've done it like at work next to a tech, and he's like, "Do you know what you're doing?" I'm like, "Well, now I do."
Yeah,
I don't think he gave me a good review.
Oh man, yeah, I like to learn the hard way. So yeah, I've done it. So yeah, Jack was saying that Curtis Stone painted his whole house with a wave resistant paint, and this is for turning his house into a Faraday cage to block the 5G signals. And that's yeah, I saw that video as well. Yeah, that's coming down the pipeline too. But auto start generator, no, it's you have to crank the generator up yourself. I think on their newer model it does have that feature to do the auto start generator, to hook that into it as well. So yeah, there's microgrids is where it's at when you're talking about solar power. If you want to be super resilient, is to create a microgrid, which is to have some kind of generator hooked into the system, power generation other than the solar. So
Right, redundancy, so you never get that battery capacity too low.
Yep. And so yeah, that's another reason I really like their product as well, because it is grid interactive with this first model that I have. So it will take power from the grid when you hook it into your main panel, and it will bleed it into your batteries to keep your batteries topped off.
Trickle charge it.
Yeah. So it has that option as well. And so, but it doesn't send power back to the grid. On their newer model, it does. It has the ability to be grid tied. Their newer
Sounds
model
like a
is.
transfer switch.
Yeah, you do have to wire in a transfer switch into. It's a manual transfer switch that you wire into a select amount of circuits on your main panel, and
Right.
so when you hook it into your main panel, then it'll accept that charge from the grid, and it'll power the select circuits that you've connected it to. And so I really like it for that reason.
Yeah, that's how you can really wire up your house for solar. There's the right way to wire it up, and then the incorrect way. And if you don't use a transfer switch and you have backfeeding issues or giving your power back to the utility, which they won't pay you anything for, you got to do it right once you bring the grid involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the big reasons why I like the off grid a lot. One of the guys that has become a good buddy of mine, he got into a scuffle with the city of Huntsville, Alabama, for living off grid within city limits. Well, they got him on a zoning violation because he was in a trailer, but he didn't back down from them, and he currently still lives in that place, and they've left him alone after that. But yeah, he was totally off grid with the solar power and everything like that, and one of his neighbors, I guess, complained about it, and that's what got this whole thing started. But yeah, these little zoning violations are kind of getting in people's way.
Yeah, that's how they get you. Like if you have
Yep.
chickens, they can get you zoning violations and get you out of there if they want to have a more modern city, as they call it.
Yeah, it's all kind of if you get your neighbors involved and you get them on your side, I think that's the best way. And that's one of the things that Jack Dubb is a fan of Curtis Stone. Curtis Stone, he talks a lot about getting your neighbors involved in what you're doing, and providing some plants and stuff for them to eat, and edibles and things along the roadways. But actually getting involved in your local city council and getting kind of starting to make it more acceptable for your local community to do these farming operations and things within the city limits. And I had chickens in my house in the city, and I shared my eggs with the neighbors and everything. I got them on my side, and so
That's important. You're right.
that's the biggest thing. Instead of thinking that these people are controlling everything, we just have to think about our local environment and how to work with the people around us, because they're ultimately the ones that are going to report you or whatever to the authorities, right? And so if you're cool with them and everybody's if everybody's good and you have them on your side, then they want to back you up instead of selling you out.
Definitely. When you bring them over gifts all the time, it makes life good for them too. But if
Yep.
you have roosters, I can get how the squawking could drive your neighbor crazy.
Yeah, I didn't do roosters. Yeah, just out of yeah, you gotta have common sense when you're trying to do these things too, and yeah, don't push your luck.
Yeah. Well, that
Yes.
sucks. You lost your last hen to that raccoon, probably. That
Yeah,
sucks.
yeah, I lost my last one, but it was my fault. There was a crack in the nest box I had, and those raccoons are smart, man. They got through the little locking thing that I had on there and opened it up, and it wasn't like a padlock, was just what it really needed to be, and so it was able to jimmy open the nest box and get at my chicken. So
Jeez, are you
pretty
gonna
sure.
raise some more on your new property?
Yeah, yeah. That's my plan, and I am wanting to get into a meat bird operation and try that out and see how well it's going to go for me.
Have you ever
And
done that before?
no, it'll be a first for me. It'll be we used to raise chickens when I was a really little kid, and so I kind of know about it a little bit. I've
Okay.
learned that I really need to get. I've been watching a lot of Justin Rhodes videos and also Walkerland. That's in the Homesteaders Co-op. I bought her little PDF on how to do homestead free range chickens and stuff like that. And so yeah, I'm just gonna get started. I'm gonna get one of the things that Joel Salatin preached and Justin Rhodes on one of his workshops was to start with 100 birds, 100 meat birds, and try to get the Cornish cross meat birds because they can grow to full maturity in like 8 weeks. And so you can turn them around pretty quick and have them all set up on that electric poultry netting and give them a good shelter to live in, a good secure coop, and then they'll get put up at night, and then they can come out during the day, and then let them free range.
Nice. Yeah, following other people's guides is the best way because you can kind of learn from their mistakes. And, just 10, 20 years ago, the only way you could find this stuff is looking at patent offices and looking at what people have patented to do. But now you people openly sharing these great designs, and I think it's a great thing.
Oh yeah, and I think that's one of the big things I'm a really big proponent of is just open sourcing of everything. I think is an important thing now, and since we're going to have so many more people coming onto the internet in the next few years, you can have so much innovation happen so quickly because we're all sharing these lessons learned with each other and what's really working and what doesn't in these designs and things, and they can be built on and improved by all these different minds with, who knows that, this 13-year-old in India or, Myanmar or like, Malaysia or something like that could have some brilliant idea and build on your design and make it like 10 times better. And it can happen so much more fast than this corporate proprietary model, I think.
Yeah, there's actually a YouTube creator that I think lives in South Asia, and he does videos on hog traps and different wild animal traps. And I'm just amazed by his ingenuity, taking like a cardboard box with rubber bands and a dowel and catching a pig. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, man. Yeah. And that's something I'm totally fascinated with is that it's our ancient past, and to think about how, the possibility that there was probably some cataclysm or something on the planet and we started back in the Stone Age. And if you think about if that really happened, the people that would be left behind would be the people that knew how to just survive off the land. And so, so you can see how, that innovation, how we've kind of lost so many of those skills to where if something like that happened now, it set us back in the Stone Age,
Yeah, there's a gap that has occurred between a generation or two where they just accepted living in the city as the new way, and the old way should be forgotten and not really remembered in many cases. And like I said, with my Los Angeles experience, the old way is really important because the new way breaks sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's just something that I think that, you know, it's better to be, be prepared, and just when you go through this process of getting more self-reliant, it is very empowering, I think, and because you build so much more confidence through the process that I can grow that, I can grow that food. I know a little bit about how to create my own power, and all these things just build your confidence as a person.
Sure is. What about ham radio and shortwave? Are you working on that for your setup?
Yeah, I have a mobile ham radio setup that one of my old coworkers gave to me, and so I'm gonna learn and take the little tests so that I can go out and play around on it. And so
Broadcast on it, yeah.
yeah, so that is part of my plans. And actually, the SL Gamer guy that was on a little while back, he executes the tests in his local area. So I was going to kind of try to communicate back and forth with him. So
yeah, I was listening to your podcast with him, and he was saying the first responders in areas that have lost power are the ham radio operators. They're very important.
Absolutely. So if all the other communication systems go down, it will be the people that are running amateur radio that can help get communications reestablished. So
yeah, I run a CB radio. I have it on my Jeep, and I tune the SWR on it, so it has a little more range than your average CB. And never had to use it for an emergency, but it is fun turning it on once in a while and just hearing people talk away, or hearing one side of the conversation usually, because the other side's way too far away to pick up.
Yeah, that was my dad had one in his old truck, and going on road trips sometimes it was fun sitting on that thing. I was in the Boy Scouts myself, and we took trips go camping in different places, and it was fun. Chattering with people over the CV sometimes. It was a good kick.
Yeah, it's amazing how far I could reach out to some people, but other times, like if I'm deep in the woods, you might only get a few miles, but if you're on top of a mountain, it's visual range at that point.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's another little realm of the resiliency that I'm looking and very interested in exploring. And I'm just like you, man. There's too many projects for me to tackle all at once. So I've got, I've built my list and put out my priorities, and I just got to do one thing at a time.
There you go. What's your next thing you're going to do on your property? What's your next big project?
The next big project is to get my water collection system finished, and then to get a basic bathroom facility and shower set up.
Like gray water, you're going to collect that and use that for washing and stuff?
Yeah, I'm planning to do a pretty elaborate water system on the property because of the way it's sloping. I'm going to have a series of ponds on the property, and then also water catchment. And so I'll be able to, I want to catch a lot of water and distribute it throughout the property, probably through ram pumps or one ram pump to be able to move some of the water to different areas without having to use any power for it. And then,
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then, after I get my basic like bathroom and water situation set up, I'm going to build a little 10 by, for right now, it's going to be a 10 by 10 cabin, and just going to do that on, trying to recycle materials and things like that and get something real simple set up. And then, moving beyond that, I will be getting looking to get a workshop off of one of those Connex containers going.
Connex, like that's a shipping container?
Shipping container, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Make sure you don't cut holes in it. Make sure you keep it sound.
Yeah.
People make that mistake and it falls apart. They're not meant to have any holes cut in them.
Yeah, or you need to support them. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Solar Miner. It's been fascinating getting to know you better.
Yeah, thank you so much for making stuff.
Yeah, so if there's anything you'd like to leave the audience with, we got about 3 minutes left. Stay tuned for Steamwave Saturday coming up next with Crimson Clad. But yeah, if you got any last closing remarks, go for it.
Wow, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's watching and listening. Did not expect to have this many people watch in on me rambling here, but thanks for having me making stuff, and everyone at MSP, the Alliance, Helpy, Steam, and all the other blockchains. I'm working with you guys to make a better future for all of us, and we can do it together, I think. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much, brother. And yeah, I look forward to keeping up with your journey. And yeah, maybe we can come meet up at some point in the near future.
For sure. Even before your cabin's all set up, don't think you have to wait until you have a whole homestead. Just be happy to come up and camp and just head back the next day, maybe.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make that happen.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate talking with y'all and seeing the comments.
Awesome, brother. I'll catch you on the flip-flop, and y'all stay tuned for Crimson Class Steamwave Saturday. This is Awake by Divine and Junk Feathers. We'll catch you guys next week.